doing today, Sarah?
Hi, Alan. Hi, everybody. I'm lucky enough to be in Brisbane and to tell you it's a beautiful day here. I'm not wearing my jumper, but us Brisbaneites, we get cold when it's 20 degrees here. Carmel and Adrian will laugh at me saying that because when temperatures don't drop too low in Brisbane. But in November, the conference is here. It's going to be great weather, great time of the year. But yeah, so I'm lucky enough to work for the Queensland University of Technology, known as QT Library. Currently, I'm the acting university librarian, but normally the associate director, and super lucky to be working with Carmel, Adrian, Marcela, yourself, Alan, and the team to put together this conference here in Australia.
All right, and we've been hearing from you about how great the weather's going to be, and I'm putting stock into it. But yeah, it'll be lovely to be in Brisbane. So next up, we'll shift over to Carmel. Hello, and let us know where you are today.
Hello, hi. I'm Carmel O'Sullivan. I'm in Toowoomba, which is about an hour and a half or 2 hours drive from where Sarah is. It's on the top of the mountain on the Great Dividing Range down the side of Australia. So we get a little bit more cold weather than Brisbane, but it is a beautiful day. It's winter, but it is very gorgeous today. Sunny. I don't have any heating on. It's just gorgeous. So yeah, we're really excited about the conference coming up and really happy to be able to chat to you all today.
That's great. And so I've been looking at a map, but what's the distance from Toowoomba to Brisbane?
Maybe 120 kilometres.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends which part of Brisbane you're going to, I guess. But yeah, not very far. I go up and down for lunch. It's all pretty easy. Yeah.
All right.
And Toowoomba is, if you are coming and you want to spread your wings a little bit further from just beautiful Brisbane, Toowoomba is, a bit colder, gets some proper seasons. You know, right now there's maple leaves all over my backyard because it's, truly winter. So it's a lovely little garden city of about 130,000 people.
All right, fantastic. I am interested because I've been to Brisbane, I've been up the coast, but I haven't been up in that direction. So Toowoomba. All right, and now we want to welcome Anna Raunik, who is just here on stage, and she's like, "What have I got myself into?" But thank you for joining us, and we're just doing our intros and talking about where we are.
So over to me then.
Yeah.
So I'm in Brisbane. Sounds like you've been to Brisbane then. So I'm at the State Library of Queensland on the river here. Grew up in Melbourne, but moved to Brisbane. So one of the things I think is different is we don't experience any seasons. So I'm jealous of the changing trees in your garden and backyard, Carmel. I've been at the State Library pretty much my whole career. Travelled a lot in Queensland because I looked after and worked with the public libraries throughout Queensland. So it's 320 public libraries in Queensland and visited about 70% of them.
That's great. And we're going to talk about a lot of things, but one of the things I know we've been most excited about is this strong connection with librarians and libraries at this conference. And I think that's going to come through strong, and just can't wait to hear more about these important connections. And now I made Adrian wait. So it's flipping over to say hello, Adrian. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Alan. And just to introduce myself, I'm the Manager Open Educational Practices at the University of Southern Queensland. So I'm based up in Toowoomba, like Carmel. And just to add to the really just to get people to consider making this a much bigger trip, if you come up to Toowoomba at roughly the same time as the conference, in September we have the Carnival of Flowers, which is where the entire city looks amazing. We're known as the Garden City. By November, that will all still be in place. So, huge amounts of public parkland. You've got lots of lookouts. We've got wineries. We've got all sorts of things happening. So if you are considering coming over for the conference, I think that it would be a bit of a waste if you didn't tack a couple of days on the end and then do a bit of exploring.
All right, I'm getting the case strongly made for Toowoomba, and so let it be known. And now I want to welcome my colleague Marcela Morales, our interim co-director at OEGlobal, and you've gotten to see Brisbane once, and so how are you today, Marcela?
I'm doing great. Currently in Austin, Texas, and we are 35 degrees at 9 p.m. So you can just imagine the temperature during the day, but it's a beautiful summer period here in Texas. And yes, I can't wait to go back to Brisbane. It was such a beautiful visit, and yeah, love everything about it. So can't wait to be there again and being able to see you in person. So yeah, looking forward to it. It seems that speeding up, that it's just around the corner. So that makes me very excited.
So this is something that we wanted to do as kind of a lead up to the conference, and so we will have one of these live sessions the last Thursday if you're in Australia, Wednesday if you're over on this side of the water, to have some different. We're gonna have some guests and have some different events going on to get people excited and let them know what's going on in the conference, and also as we get closer, find ways for people who will be able to participate who maybe can't get to the conference. And so there's been a lot going on, and ideally we want to talk some about the conference theme and sort of, and obviously what it means and how maybe it's reflected so far and what people can expect from that. But also just for everybody involved, like at this point in the process, which is quite long, how does it feel for everybody? Like, how are you feeling right now? Who wants to jump in there?
I think having all those submissions ready to be reviewed makes it very real, I think. And yeah, we're really excited. But there's a lot of work to do.
I was saying to Alan just beforehand that now that we know that the submissions were so strong and just the sheer number as well, also you'll see a bit later on the diversity of topics, that lifted a great weight off our shoulders when we thought, right, we're going to actually have a program here. This is going ahead. And so I said to Alan, we're now not stressing about certain things, but we're finding new things to stress about.
And very excited about the keynotes too.
Yeah, and we will. We're going to talk more about the keynotes next month, and we're hoping to have some of them line up. But we can say now we know one of the keynotes because we posted something today. Who wants to give a summary about the first keynote that we know about?
I'm looking at Adrian because, Adrian, it was your fabulous idea to reach out to Penny, Jane, and we've met with her recently, so it's very exciting. She's excited too. Adrian, I think, a bit more than all of us about her background.
Oh, okay. I was giving pause so that because listening to me speak for an hour falls under cruel and unusual. So I like to be quiet for a while. So we have Professor Penny Jane Burke. She is our UNESCO chair in social justice in higher education. And I thought that was amazing because, well, one, we have some really solid UNESCO chairs in Australia. Not very many, but I think that we make up for that in just the quality of the areas in particular. And what really stood out to me with Professor Burke was that when we were talking to her on Monday, she was talking about the role of social justice, inclusion, engaging people in higher education, and she was conversant in OER as well. But what I thought was also very timely is in Australia, our federal government has put out what is called the University Accords. And this is a document that essentially is charting strategy for universities for the next coming decades. And Penny was able to speak directly to how that related to open education, to social inclusion, to social justice. And so it's not only going to be incredibly timely, but I think the kinds of things that she is talking about are things that higher education systems internationally are trying to grapple with. And just also speaking of inclusion, I also noticed that we're joined by colleagues at Charles Darwin University in the library there. So I just want to say hi, because I have some contacts up there, and especially through the special interest group. So I just want to make sure that they are welcome.
Yeah, and as you were saying, the library connection is very strong through this. Can anyone kind of chime in about, like, as people who are aware and part of the open education scene in Australia, like, obviously reflecting the important issues of equity and diversity and inclusion, and what is current of interest for open education in Australia right now? And I don't know if that's possible to even summarize, but we say open education as if it's the same thing in every part of the world, and I don't think that's true. So even at your institutions, like, what are you dealing with right now, or facing or excited about?
I guess we're hoping that you'll get to know lots at the conference, hopefully, about some work that the University Librarians group have done over the last few years, and Adrian's had a big hand in a lot of that around open education resources. So a collective to produce textbooks that are aimed at the undergrad curriculum in Australia, higher education. And so there's quite a lot of publications that have come out of that, and that's really good collaboration with academics and librarians and other people within universities. So we think that's pretty exciting, and seems to have had quite a lot of success.
And Carmel, if I jump in here, I should introduce Carmel's actually the president of that big organisation. So it's so exciting, Carmel, what everyone's doing in that area. It's really, yeah, like Carmel said, exploding here thanks to Call doing that work.
Yeah, and I guess it's a good example of how you can achieve more together than you can separately. So certainly, Adrian's done that work for UniSQ for a long time, but putting all of those universities together to do it, and it's quite a voluntary kind of aspect to it. We do have some funding, and we do fund some grants for academics, but the Call's kind of one of Call's underlying principles is to pick what is better to do together than separately, where we can leverage the power of lots of people together, which fits really well into that open ethos as well. And we really vastly exceeded the expectations. There's 40 odd university libraries in Australia. We thought we might get 10 of them interested in the collective, but a couple of years in, we've got almost everybody in Australia and in Aotearoa, New Zealand, on that collective, working together to make students' experience of university and reduce those barriers to entry to higher education. And that fits in again with that Universities Accord work that's been done in Australia very recently, because that talks a lot about expanding the reach of higher education and expanding the types of people who feel they belong in higher education, and reducing the cost barrier is one of the ways, and also the ability to contextualize materials there's a good example of a text around academic success that's been repurposed by several different universities just with that local context, and putting that local flavour in, using all the good content, but then making it really flexible and relevant to your particular cohort or your area of Australia. It's really, really important. And I think that's one of the nice things you can do with open content, is repurpose for a really specific cohort. I think that's really important.
All right, thank you. And how is the connection, Anna, or the interest within the state library and the public library system? Because we're having some interesting conversations elsewhere about how the interest and the difference are quite different for public libraries and OER.
Yeah, certainly very supportive and have worked in the open access space in terms of making our collections and content more accessible. Very proactive in any sort of work that happens in response to Creative Commons initiatives, copyright legislation changes, using and working like CALL with the other state and national libraries to advocate for both respecting creators, but at the same time looking at ways we can work and make our collections more accessible to create new knowledge. So for us, it's certainly very much around how do we make our collections and content more accessible, but also that we have a role to play in advocating and helping people understand what it means rather than everything is good or everything is bad.
And just, I mean, the collaboration on a national scale and considering the distance and like regional differences between places is quite impressive.
Yeah.
I wish we did that over here.
Certainly we like CALL, we have a group called NASLA, which is National and State Libraries, very similar in that sometimes we have to, challenge ourselves. Is this going to work because of the collaboration? And we have done some amazing things. And in the end, you really do, like CALL, I'm sure you build on that, the skill level, different skill levels and the opportunities. And it's been great for me professionally to be able to work across the network and across the state and to do things that sometimes have had some really amazing long-term impacts rather than a very narrow focused one organisational impact.
Yeah, I would have to say the State Library of Queensland is an amazing place to visit when you're in Brisbane. It's right next door. You can walk in 5 minutes from the convention centre. 5, do you reckon? 10, maybe?
Depends.
Depends how fast you walk to the State Library, but it's got amazing exhibition centres, areas and really amazing, makerspace areas and areas for First Nations people to come together. It's a beautiful spot but also a really innovative public library. So I think it's well worth a visit, and I think it's a really good connection. We're really very happy that State Library have joined with us on this conference, because I think it just adds a whole other dimension to what it means to be open, and it brings us a bit out of our comfort zone of what we usually talk about. Well, I talk about in my work. It helps me expand my horizons a little bit.
And I think one of the things that I've most appreciated, Anna, the learning about State Library through our interactions is just how invested State Library is in authentic consultation with community and how much work they do in that space. And I was just wondering if maybe you might talk about some things that have been done recently. Like you had the veterans project that was running, and there's been also a range of activities that have involved the Australian Indigenous communities around Brisbane as well. I think that highlighting this sort of stuff means that, especially from a university perspective, I look at State Library and think, right, next time I'm putting in for a research project, I'm going to be reaching out and seeing if I can, grab colleagues from down your way and see what we can do together.
Well, thanks, Adrian. And Carmel, there's so many different things we're working on. We recently launched an exhibition that'll be open till Christmas on, it's called Deaf and Dance, and it's an Indigenous deaf dance group that's been around for over 20 years. And you can visit and see a beautiful exhibition that acknowledges diversity, but also inclusion, and have your mind blown, really. And the part of the opening included, they're actually based in Cairns, and the dance troupe came down and danced for us with, it was an amazing thing to watch, this group of people. And they their collection and their archive has been added to the library. So it's more than just an exhibition that exists for 6 months. People will be able to view that. We've done a digital story with them, which so you can watch the digital story online that also has an Auslan perspective. So it's a big learning curve for all of us. But the other thing Adrian mentioned was a recent project we've completed, which was using our digitised collection of over 1,000 letters and diaries written by World War I soldiers, and using that to create a chatbot so that you can have a conversation with the soldier. So pretty amazing opportunity to use. It turns out that all of those letters and diaries were over 1.3 million words. But you can go online and ask Charlie what was it like in the trenches. And it's been developed as a school engagement opportunity, but the adults are loving it. But part of that work was that we engaged with over 20 teachers to make sure we had the right content but also with veterans. So we got that sign of approval from veterans that it was, we had to change his hat because the hat was wrong from a World War I perspective, and we got that advice. But it is quite interesting to see how one of the things that we wanted as a library was that we didn't want a chatbots that just gave you an answer. It had to share where that answer came from, and it had to give you as a member of the public or a user the opportunity to explore more. So we wanted citations, really. So when you ask the veteran a question, the chatbot a question, you'll get a link to the diary that answer came from, so you can go and explore more. So it's a really interesting example of how the collections can be repurposed into something completely different. And that's because we've taken the time to digitize that content and make that content accessible.
All right. I think the state library may be nudging Toowoomba out is where I want to go, but I'm going to try to fit them both in.
You can do both.
Yeah, because 10 minutes to walk there. And don't get distracted and forget to come back to the conference, but that's another issue. We wanted to talk about the theme of the conference, and can we just talk about, I'm not going to ask you to define, but open is everybody's business, or open for, I already messed it up already, so someone correct me. What's the theme this year? Open is everybody's business.
Everyone's business.
Everyone's business. So can obviously we want to talk about, we can make sense of what it means, but like, how did that evolve? And so what was the process that became the theme for doing this? Because that was early on in the planning process, I would guess.
I think it really came from Adrian. Do you want to talk about it, Adrian?
Well, we were thinking predominantly about the fact that if the conference is going to be a landmark event, and I really do feel that it is in terms of Australian practice, it's the first time the conference is coming here. We've been working in open for over a decade, in various ways, and it's just coming to the point where it's got national coverage. And we were kicking around the table the idea of, okay, we want this to be about everybody, that we want to challenge the notion that open is just something that higher ed does. Even though higher ed tends to get the spotlight, it is something that K-12 deals with. It is something that vocational education, that the GLAM sector, everyone should be involved in this. And if we are going to use the conference as a catalyst for future action and future commitment to open, we need everybody on board. It shouldn't just be the universities out there saying, we're committed to this. It should rather be a unified front, that it doesn't matter where you are in education, and even challenging that notion of what is education and who is a student, who is a learner. It was really the idea of how do we tie all of that lot together and signal to people that we want to hear from everybody, that everyone's got a voice here. And one of the things that I have used over the years is the open is everyone's business. And that was actually repurposed. We have a researcher, Professor Sally Kift, who did amazing work in first year experience in higher education. And she always used to say first year experience is everyone's business. And so with attribution, I have repurposed that. And when we were talking around the table, it just seemed that we naturally ended up at that point that everyone around the table was committed to the idea that this is about how everyone contributes, not just one sector. Sarah, did you want to add to that?
As usual, Adrian, you nailed it. Perfect.
Well, one of the things that I should mention, because we've kind of highlighted UniSQ and State Library, is that, Sarah, an opening for you, is that QUT was actually the place where, now, it was the world's first policy on open access research repositories. And also in the policy space, I point people to QUT all the time for the work that they do and for Creative Commons as well. So I just thought that in terms of bringing everything together and saying, well, all things to all people, did you want to talk about a couple of those things and how QUT contributes?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Adrian. Yeah, very fortunate to be part of the QT community in that sense. It's been in our DNA, I think, for a very number of years. I've been here over 20 years. It's definitely always been a part. I did go away, but I came back because that whole ethos that was open here at QT. I think we were really lucky from the start that our leaders higher, outside the library and the university, were very supportive, and they could really understand what open meant, and they really wanted to push that agenda. So then it wasn't easy from what I've heard, but it came about that we could put it into our QT policy. So we have an open access policy. Our QT ePrints repository is got a fantastic history and continues to grow. But we also have our open education resource policy. It's actually on my shoulders at the moment because we're renewing it, keep updating. It gets renewed every 5 years, and it's falling in my reign. We're looking at that at the moment as well. So it's great to have those policies to showcase internally within also the academia, but also professional staff, because not only the library, but the learning and teaching area and research, the importance of open. And the fact that we have those policies, QT community know that we're there and we're committed. So it's been great. Thanks, Adrian.
So this has been the theme. It's been established, and now it's out there. I mean, how's it sitting with everybody? Or what are you hearing back when you say that's the theme of this conference? What anything as to what people expect or want to see from that, or ask you, well, what about such and such?
I think from my perspective, it's been really a useful way to open the conversation with libraries and GLAM sector reps that haven't necessarily seen themselves in this space, even though they are already in this space. So it has been a really easy way to think about, to encourage both the proposals and hopefully the attendance. So the theme, I think, has really made it easy to initiate that conversation around, did you know we're having the conference? Are you thinking of coming? What's your role in this space? So success, Adrian.
And a good remix, as we heard, and that's definitely going with it. And so, given that you've seen the session, the conference proposals come in. Are you seeing in that a reflection of this theme, and any comments that you can make about, don't give anything away, but in terms of the breadth and range of the proposals? Can anybody talk to that?
Adrian, I do want to step on your toe. I'm thinking without, it's hard to answer that, Alan, without giving anything away, because we are seeing them behind the scenes, and there's a great wealth, and it's definitely nailing the theme.
Well, I did I put together. I'll put this on screen. This is, I believe, this is a word cloud from. Explain. Is this from the tags, or is it? This is like a glance at the major themes within the proposals, right?
Yep, that's right. I think it's giving clear messaging there.
Yeah. So very, very good to see that. Any any ideas yet? Maybe it's too early to sort of give people a sense about how the theme of Open for Everybody's Business might be represented in the program, not just the sessions, but like what activities may happen or what people might, and maybe it's too early, but just curious about how the theme is feeding into what the conference as a whole will look like.
Well, we're not quite at the actually setting the program yet. We're still at the reviewing proposals stage, so it's hard to tell exactly how that will pan out. But we certainly are looking at a number of workshops and more interactive things to happen where people can learn or come away with something tangible, as well as listen to people's more usual presentations. But there's a real diversity of places that the presentations come from and themes for the presentations, so the proposals. So I'm really looking forward to the hard work of figuring out how everything hangs together for the duration of the conference. But I think it'll be really it will be really interesting, and you'll have an opportunity to hear from people who you might not normally think about hearing from. So yeah, I think it'll be really interesting.
Yeah, and I think that I would just very briefly like to commend all the program co-chairs for coming up with the areas. So it's not only the theme that was broad and welcoming everybody coming in, but then the list of possible areas that were very encouraging in some sections or sectors that would not be expected to be part of the program. And after seeing like the pool of proposals that we have received, it's like, oh yes, I didn't think that something like that could fit in, and most likely will. So super excited to see the diversity on the topics of the proposals. But I think that you were going to say something, Adrian. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say Anna is responsible for the visualizations there, and I know that we had some pie graphs and the like. So I just wondered if Anna, would you feel okay just kind of talking to a couple of these as Alan puts them up, because we've got these from your work.
Yeah, I think it was, for me, it was just trying to make sense out of all the different proposals, and I haven't certainly started looking at them, but it was interesting to see, presentations still being the most popular option for people to select, but it's great to see workshops and lightning talks. So, it will allow us to build some variety in the session so that we're not just listening to one presentation after another. I'm really interested to see what the wildcard options will be and how people decided to, why they picked that option. So looking forward to looking at those.
And then I think this is pretty small, but this kind of reflects some of what I think Marcela was.
So I think really interest as expected. In some ways, I'm sort of surprised that we didn't get much more coming out of the artificial intelligence. So there's 4% of the papers were about artificial intelligence. There's some interest in and diversity with First Nations perspectives and data sovereignty. I think the one that was pretty amazing as well is, 30 proposals on social justice and sustainability. So it'd be interesting if we, I don't know what the topics were like and the options were like for the previous conference to see what the trends are like. But the most popular there being things like inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, which I think is really powerful. And of course, open education practices being the second most popular.
And thank you so much for doing this. I don't know, Marcela, if we've ever taken a look at the conference structure like this. So it's good to have the librarians in the house with us on this. And I'm curious because we talked about, and Adrian was in Edmonton, and thoughts as far as the strong Indigenous perspective that was part of that conference. Might we expect some of this in Brisbane? And again, I know I'm asking questions way before you even know what it's going to look like, but just wondering how that is factoring into your thinking.
Well, it's certainly been part of our thinking from the very beginning. And one of the things that I was incredibly impressed about with Edmonton was they had the concept of braiding, which was all the way through the conference. It wasn't just something that they mentioned at the beginning and then said, "Oh yes, this is an important practice. We know about it." Rather, they actually lived it. The keynotes, especially, dwelt on this, and the keynotes from both of the Indigenous speakers were just amazing. They were so good, and so even the welcoming, I got a chance to participate in the welcoming ceremony with one of the elders, and it's always a brilliant experience. And in Australia, we have similar practices where, for something like this, it would be unthinkable for us to go ahead without what is called a welcomed country. And this is where we engage with the local communities, and we would have an elder, an uncle or an auntie who would come to the conference. They would be a part of talking to us about why the conference is important, what kind of values we hold, and they would welcome us into their country. And it's a very powerful thing to be a part of, and you'll see it across Australian culture with everything from, say, sporting events through to events at Parliament and those sorts of things, where we try to keep very conscious of the fact that the way that one of my colleagues puts it, that we are uninvited guests on traditional lands. And so we're going to try our best to behave as good guests, because I think that that's incredibly important. And one of our keynotes will be speaking to some of the key points around openness, open research, and Indigenous data sovereignty, which is a very big topic here at the moment. Now, I'll pass it over to my colleagues, the rest of the committee, if you wanted to add anything around your thoughts around what this sort of stuff means and why it's important for us to engage with it.
No, I think you picked it all up. I think there's a lot of interest, certainly at the state library levels and the national library level, around Indigenous collections and data sovereignty and Indigenous rights. So I think it is a particular interest here in Australia, and there's a lot of First Nations people with strong and important views in that space. So I think it will be an interesting, hopefully something we can explore with some of the papers at the conference. But it's certainly something that we're looking at all the state libraries, for example, around collections and archives as well. In particular in Queensland, the Queensland State Archives is doing a lot of work. The other thing in Queensland is that we are going through a truth-telling process and a path to treaty, and that involves access to collections and content and rethinking the way we describe our collections and make them accessible to people that want to explore and understand the past. So it's complex times.
Yes, and you know, we're not alone in being a country that has a strong and uncomfortable legacy of colonialism. So I think it's something that we see as very important to highlight on the program, and to have guests of the conference really engage with and understand the perspectives.
I was just going to add too, as part of the program, we've also been lucky enough to lock in a fabulous Indigenous Australian artist, Joe Geyer, for our welcome reception. So we're going to be listening to Joe, who's a great storyteller as well as a musician, on that special night as well. So, and that will be here at QUT. And we're we're excited because here at QUT we're the first university in Australia to have a faculty of Indigenous perspectives and knowledge, and so that's the time at the end of the year we're going to showcase more of that. So when you come visit the State Library Toowoomba, across the river from Convention Centre is our campus that you'll be visiting, part of the welcome reception.
And that welcome reception venue is amazing. So, great views, and yes, really looking forward to the music too.
That's fantastic, and I agree, Adrian. The concept of braiding was very compelling, and we might even possibly reach out to Darian Latendra and see maybe if he can kind of join one of our future sessions and sort of give some input as to how this can continue to 2024. I think that'd be exciting. There was also, I got to participate. There was a closing circle with a small group activity that was maybe one of the most amazing parts of my experience in Edmonton. And it also had another, not to go back to Edmonton, but well, let's go back to Edmonton. No, we're going to Brisbane, but there was a really powerful component of student participation. They had the student volunteers who helped out with a lot of the media, and it was just great to have the student visibility. So again, with open being everybody's business, any thoughts as to how or interest, and again, very early, as to how students might be part of this experience?
Well, we're exploring a program at the moment, especially for library and information science students, because one of the things that we notice, especially in our profession, is that early career students are not often given the opportunities to go to conferences, to participate and the like. And so we are exploring opportunities for how we might open that up and have more involvement from students. It's also worth noting that the musician for the conference reception is actually, or was actually, a QUT student, or has he graduated since?
No, he's completing his PhD.
Right. Yeah. So we've reached out in various institutions to look at how we might involve our students, and where possible, under the auspices of the theme Everyone's Business, to try and get people who may not always get an opportunity to engage, to get them into the space. And hopefully, the way that I see it is that if we can encourage students to be engaging with open, they're our future colleagues. They're the people who are going to go out after us and are going to help shape the future landscape. So if we can enculturate existing students into this space, it's also helping us with the sustainability of the movement overall.
All right, so I'm checking my list here. I have Toowoomba, the State Library, and the facility at QUT, the music. And so we're going to be building this list of things that we hope everybody's thinking about, who'll get a chance to go there. Forecast ahead, what's coming in the next couple of weeks? The proposals are going to be reviewed. At some time, there'll be a draft program put out. Looking ahead, our next webcast will be the last, I think it's July 25th. And so what might be on that schedule? I think I know, but I'm seeding the question here. What's happening for all of you in the next part of this process?
Proposal reviews is very high on the agenda, and we do have some other keynotes that we'll be able to announce as well, which we're very excited about as well.
And I think we're going to have possibly some of them join us for our next webcast. So we're excited about that possibility.
And we've been speaking with them, and they're very excited to be a part of this conference, which is a two-way street, isn't it? Yeah.
I think as well, once we've already booked in that we're going down to Brisbane for a day, down to State Library, where it'll be all post-its and whiteboards so that we can put together the draft program once the review process is over. On that note, one of the things that I've been part of an organising committee for a conference before, and this was not my past experience, but I get an email every time someone's completed a review. And normally what happens, in my experience and what I've talked to other people, is that last week you get this massive flurry of activity as people go, oh, the deadline's coming in. My inbox has been so full, and we've only been open for a week. Our reviewers are just amazing people. And if any of them are listening, I just want to let them know how much we appreciate the fact they started the same day that they got the email, and they have just been powering through those reviews. So I'm really quite hopeful we'll be on time. But yeah, just a massive thank you for how conscientious our reviewers are. They're an amazing group of people. So the next thing is, of course, draft program. And with these sessions, we're hoping to have some of the keynotes, if not all of them, on a future episode. And beyond that, we're also rounding up people from various organisations across Australia who are involved in open, whether it be advocacy, practice, research, and hoping to do a bit of a panel with them so that we can give people an insight as to what the state of open is like in Australasia. So that way it provides a bit of a grounding and a bit more information before people come.
That's definitely very exciting. I remember talking when we were in the conversation with the planners for the conference in Nantes, and it was time to put together the schedule, and it was basically, I heard it described as like 6-dimensional chess. Like it's not simple. So we applaud the work that it's going to take you to do it with all the sticky notes. Because it's a very complex task. And so thank you for doing the magic there. And so just want to thank you all again for taking your lunch hour to spend the time with us. And we'll be back in a month, and we'll have some updates on the program and the keynotes. We'll get to meet, and we'll be this much closer to being together in Brisbane. And so just again, want to appreciate you all taking the time to do this and help get the word out there about the conference. Parting words, anybody? Marcela, do you have anything to add, since you're part of running this show too?
Yeah, no, well, very happy to see that everything's running smoothly because of the amazing local hosts that we have. So everything's on time, and we're super excited. I'm also being part of the reading of the proposal, so it's been super exciting to be part of that process, as always. Learning about the new initiatives that people are doing around the world, and getting the opportunity to read them through the proposal review process. It's just amazing. And so very happy about that. And I know that we all are going to be busy with that until the end of July. So most likely we would be able to share like a proposal of draft by early August is my guess. And maybe it's worth mentioning that the registrations will open on the 1st of July.
Oh, yeah.
So people can start registering as of just a few days. And then, so maybe that's like the first day that we can share as concretely. But super excited to be in this with you, and can't wait to be there again, and encouraging everybody to don't miss this wonderful opportunity to be part of this conference. So much care and so much work is put into it that you can see it everywhere. So hopefully people are going to jump on planes and get there, and we will have a full house. And thank you all for being part of this process with us.
Marcela, just chatting about registrations. I know colleagues who have bookmarked July 1st to get in. They don't want to I've had other colleagues in the university who are like learning designers, curriculum designers. Hey, Sarah, did you know there's this amazing OE global conference coming
Do
to
you
Queensland?
know, Sarah?
No, that's amazing. I was like, make sure you
Maybe I should go.
That sounds fun and interesting.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for telling me. But it's the buzz is here. I know QT, we've got our PD budget ready for OEGlobal. So it's on the map for the year. Yeah. But Marcela and Alan, thank you very much to OEGlobal. It's like we've all learnt so much, and I'm so grateful to Adrian, Carmel, and Anna too. You can see we're a great team, but yeah, being all together, it's been an amazing experience.
All right, so we've gotten to the end of the show, and thank you very much for doing this. And again, we'll be back in a month with lots more exciting updates. And again, like I know I got a lot of this. I got Toowoomba on my list, and I was just like going to the QUT library to find some of these links, and I'm like, I want to spend some time there looking at what's going on at the state library. I'm sorry, state library. So again, many appreciation. And Marcela, I don't know, should we make Igor get up at 3 a.m. for the next one?
Yeah, I think let's do that. No, I don't know.
I think I think it's very fair for us to go through the hijinks of what Australians probably have to do to be part of events in North America. So it's definitely fair play.
I agree. Let's be fair.
All right. So thanks again.
Thank you.
We're going to go out with our music, and we'll see you again in a month.